I'd like to call this meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Board to order for Thursday, March 27th, 2014. And our first order of business will be to pledge the flag. And I'm wondering if Director Pierce would help us with that.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Proceeding then to the Metro Cable announcement. Oh, thank you. The open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, March 29th, 2014 at 1 p.m. and Monday, March 31st, 2014 at 6 p.m. on Channel 14, webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Opportunities for the public to discuss matters of public interest within the jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda, are provided. And to that end, those wishing to speak, I would note that there are speakers forms available, and so we will do those immediately at the beginning of the agenda. And you can see the board clerk for them. Moving then to the consent items. We have four items on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I so move the consent agenda as listed.
Wait, point of order, sir.
Sir.
I believe we still have public comment.
We take the public comment.
We take the public
Oh,
consent.
thank you. Thank you. Let's do that. So then let's then move to public comment before consent. And with that, Mr. Headland.
Good afternoon, Board and Chair. Doug Holland. Sorry for the...
I'm sorry?
That's okay. Just call me anything you like except late for dinner. I simply wanted to ask, a week ago, the Chief was kind enough to make a presentation relative to the topic that will be discussed on April 3rd, the fire tax. During that time, I asked, because the engineer's report bases much of what the board will consider on a publicly declared policy, and I asked if I could receive a copy of the adopted policy of the board. And to me, it's kind of critical because it establishes this baseline 4-minute standard for responses according to a regulation, the National Fire Protection Association regulation. And I need to know, I suppose, if the board adopted this policy based on that regulation and on the entirety of the regulation, or is simply segmenting, if you will, the regulation, because in the regulation, if you've reviewed it, there is a 4-minute response time, but that's in addition to calls, call processing, and other factors that impact the response times, including a differentiation, if you will, between urban and rural. And since the district has a fairly large percentage of rural area that it covers, if the district's intention is to meet a 4-minute response time across the board, it's going to require a substantial investment in infrastructure to meet that goal 90% of the time, whether it be immediately or long term. The other part of it is there are manning requirements contained in that 1710 code. And right now, I'm not certain that the department meets those standards, but if they intend to also adopt that policy or that part of the policy, then there's going to be another substantial expense to the district to bring its manning requirements up to that regulation. So the first thing I need to establish is, what is the policy, when was it adopted, and what part of that policy that this thing is supposedly based upon was the adoption by the board. So far, I haven't seen anything.
I would simply address that as follows. We do have a board policy, and it was adopted in 2009. I will make sure that Deputy Chief Holbrook gets that for you. He has it in his office. Also, I'd like to make some clarifications in regards to the National Fire Protection Association, that those are recommendations. They're not requirements. So on the four-person staffing, which I imagine you're talking about, those are all recommendations which this board of directors in this district has not adopted that. We run three-person companies, and that allows us to stretch resources a lot more thinly throughout the district. So the issue of call processing on the 3rd, and we can see you, Mr. Holland, after the meeting, is really based on the Citygate report that was put together back in 2009 that lays out in detail why that standard for us was adopted as a goal to get to 90% of our incidents within a 4-minute travel time.
Right. Well, I don't, Chief, I don't mean to be rude. I don't want to tie up all of my time with a long answer. I get that. That was why I was hoping that in the intervening 7 days since my request, those documents would have been provided, and we could have had that discussion offline. I'm kind of concerned also, if I might, just for 30 seconds, during that same meeting, there was a discussion of the recent information provided through the Controller's Office relative to the salaries in the district. And it was explained that the problem that the district didn't have actually 56, I think, out of the top 100 paid people in Sacramento County. It was substantially less than that there was double reporting going on that was not caught, if you will, prior to the information being submitted to the Controller's Office. The question I have for the board, and can hope that the board would undertake a review of these figures, those individuals, if there were individuals who retired during dependency of those figures being submitted erroneously and then followed through not only with the Controller's Office but also where those figures double reported to CalPERS, and did that then create a larger, if you will, cost to the people of California?
I can answer that for you right now. We have undertaken that. We have double, triple checked the numbers. Overtime under CalPERS law is not compensable for retirement purposes. The issue that was double counted was overtime. We obtained in our internal audit 50 additional people that were not covered. They were included in the updated numbers. We sent those updated numbers not only to the state controller, who has corrected them on their website, we also sent those updated numbers, I believe, to the Sacramento Bee as well, so that the media has them. And in fact, it did drop our numbers almost in half as far as the people that were there, sir.
That was just kind of a lingering question that came afterwards. I would appreciate a rapid response on the resolution of adoption, primarily because, again, as I said, the Citygate report is predicated in large part on that policy, and I'd like to see how that was factored in to this report. Thank you, Board.
Thank you very much. Chief, let me ask you a question. What's your sense of timeline for that response?
Yeah, I think Deputy Chief Holbrook can get it for him for the meeting, and I want to make clear that the Citygate, it's the chicken and the egg. The Citygate report and analysis of our district, I believe, came first, and then the board took that report under recommendation, was presented to them, and that's how we came up with our 4-minute travel time standard. So Citygate did the study of the district first, laid out the detail so that they had detailed data to take a look at, and that's at the point that they said that's the standard that they would like to follow. So we'll get you copies both. I think we can get you a copy of the Citygate report as well. Are you sure that you have the initial? No, that was, that Citygate report there is a cost-benefit analysis. I can actually get you a copy of the Citygate report, and I believe they're available online as well. That goes back to 2009 and does the initial study of our district and goes into excruciating detail. It's probably about that thick in regards to response areas. It goes into different coverages throughout the district and the whole 9 yards, and I think that would be really, really enlightening for you to be able to take a look at that, because that's what it's based on, and I think that's what you're trying to get back to, is where did you get this data and how was it put together? So I'll make sure that we get that for you.
Is that something that's doable now?
The Citygate report, I think I'm going to have to print it out. Go ahead.
It won't take long. However, I think it's probably prudent for me to stay through the rest of public comment so I can make one trip.
Right.
There
Oh,
we go.
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll
Sure.
make whatever we have available.
Mr. Marcello?
Good evening. I think I'm in District 7. My name is Ralph Marcello. I'm a CPA with Marcello and Company CPAs. We're contract government auditors. We've been doing this a long time, and I started working with the governments in 1970, working with the SAC base with their budgets when I was just 18 years old. I've seen a lot of budgets over the years, and one thing I don't understand is you have a budget of about $153 million, according to the paper, and you have a shortfall of $32,000. That's the equivalent of having a $100 budget and you're short by 2 cents. It seems to me it'd be very easy to come up with that budget shortfall. Here's an example. In front of the Rayleigh store on Watt and Marconi, I see the firemen show up there in their fire truck daily to buy their lunch. And I'm wondering, why is it that the most of us in the country buy our lunches before we go to work and bring it with us, but yet they take a fire truck that probably only gets 4 miles a gallon to go to Rayleigh's to buy their groceries? Why can't they buy them before they start work? So my suggestion is you could probably save about $10,000 in gasoline alone by eliminating this fringe benefit of using our fire trucks for them to go buy their lunches. Second, in regard to your vans, I'm kind of curious why you're buying German-made vans when most of your firemen are union workers. And why aren't they supporting their brothers in Detroit and Michigan who make American vehicles instead? Can anybody tell me why you've chosen to buy German vehicles?
I represent District 7, and I'd have to tell you that that is a decision that's made by our fleet. We merely set policy for the board, but I thought the very same thing when I saw that we were buying the Mercedes-Benz vans myself.
Yeah, those vans are manufactured in Germany. The commercial vans are disassembled, sent to the United States where they're reassembled, and the passenger vans are actually sent over here intact.
I can add a little bit to that, since from the management side, I'm responsible for that. The current configuration that we have, those ambulances get somewhere around 4 or 5 miles to the gallon. It's a very low amount. The legacy ambulances. What is the miles per gallon on the new ones? Greater than 12. And so also they're a much streamlined configuration. They use less fuel, and they're much more cost efficient to run. And so that was the business decision that we made, since those ambulances are on the street 24/7, and it was a business decision to save this district money and to streamline into a new paramedic paradigm whereby we have civilian employees who do not need fire gear on their ambulances, which means we can run smaller ambulances that are more fuel efficient, that save the district money. And so that's the decision process that went into implementing that. I can't argue on whether those vans are constructed by union workers or put together by union workers in the United States. I don't know that, but from a business decision, it was about making sure we got the best fuel economy and the best streamlined piece of equipment we could use. We didn't need the larger chassis to carry all the gear because we had switched to a lower wage employee delivery system as well.
Now, do you think, philosophically speaking, is it necessary for the fire department to compete with all the private industry companies that are out there also providing EMS?
Well, I'll let you finish your deal, but very simply, it's this. We're not competing. The private ambulance companies in Sacramento County 20 years ago picked up overnight, sent a letter to the County Board of Supervisors and said, we're leaving. In a 24 to 48-hour period, the fire agencies end up absorbing the ambulance service in Sacramento County in its entirety. That ambulance business today generates revenue which we use to put back into keeping fire stations open and into keeping engine companies in service. And yet, if you take a look at what we charge, we have always stayed $50 underneath the private sector 911 emergency ambulance transport service. So we have the exclusive rights to provide service because we inherited those when they abandoned the service, so to speak, and left us with all the 911 responsibility. And we run that as a private business, and instead of taking that money and shipping it, as you would say, over to Denmark or where some of the large ambulance companies are outside of the United States and profits, we as the fire service in Sacramento County reinvest that into keeping fire stations open and engine companies staffed. And we still do it at a less bill than what the private industry is charging.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you. Chief, do you want to make a comment regarding the lunch issue?
On the lunch issue, our firefighters work anywhere from 48 hours to 96 hours straight shifts. They live at the firehouse. If we were to run them on 8s or 12s like the regular industry is, we would have to hire probably 2 to 3 times the amount of personnel. And that means that those personnel we would then have to pay them benefits, and we would have to deal with all the workers' comp and injuries and all the stuff that goes with that. So it's the most economic system for delivering that service level. And even on the East Coast, where they stick to the 12-hour shifts, they're starting to move to 24s because it's the most efficient model. When they're out in the district doing their pre-plans or coming back from a call or doing their shopping, which they do shop for their 48 hours, they will stop by either a restaurant or a store to pick up their groceries and go back. But they do not, as a regular occasion, make a plan to drive the engine specifically to go out and do that. It's normally in concert with what their planned pre-plans or inspections are for the day. The firefighters don't, like they did 100 years ago, have a lot of off time. A lot of our stations run between 17 and 21, 25, 30 calls per shift. And they have responsibilities for doing business inspections and weed abatement and everything else that goes with it. So their days are pretty full from sunup to sundown, and we just incorporate that in there. So I want to assure the public that they're not expending those funds to go out there simply for a joyride to the store. They live in the fire station. That's where some of our employees, if you're referring to the amount of money that was mentioned in the paper, we had employees at certain parts of the year, 30 to 50 employees a day were ordered to work. They were not allowed to go home, sometimes in cases of 1, 2, 3 days, 4 days in a row for a total of 96 hours that they didn't see their family. And in some cases, due to the bad fire seasons that we've had, we had employees who were gone on overhead teams and fire incidents and worked an equivalent of 2,000 hours of overtime, either filling in or on those incidents. Not necessarily because they wanted to do that. That's the equivalent of a full year's employment. But that's what they did on top of where it's at. And that's why the numbers are high. And we have deliberately run short in the fire department because it was cheaper several years ago to pay overtime than hire fully funded employees. And if you come, I'll read into the record after the last speaker, unless it is, I would be happy to give you all the cost cuts that we made to get it to the point where it's now cheaper to hire full-time benefited employees, and that's because of massive labor concessions that this board of directors directed be done. And with the cooperation mid-contract of Local 522, we were able to accomplish.
Thank you, Chief. Moving then to Mr. Franklin.
This is not going to take hardly any time at all. Mr. Marcello already addressed the same issue that I had with the vans. But I would just like to express a little of the frustration I still feel in that, because I'm a private sector, self-employed person, and I see the things that go on with so many of my peers where they're underemployed and they need work. And when we farm products to other countries, that people that we know that are in politics will frequently say they're doing jobs that our people won't do. That's not true. The value of our jobs have been eroded away because of the influx of people in this country that are highly skilled laborers that aren't here legally. So my point that I want to make is it really disturbs me when I totally agree with your arguments in justifying those vans, but it disturbs me when we're not trying to support the American worker all the way through and through. I have no choice but to support these firemen through my tax dollars. And you guys have the comfort of legislating and making policies that are imposed on us people that are out there trying to generate revenues, not only for our families, but also your families. So I'd like to just see a lot more thought put into the determining where our money's going to be spent. And if it means that you got to go back to some of our American auto companies and say, look, we're going to buy vehicles from you, but these other vehicles are getting better gas mileage, and you need to do something to encourage that. It just really disturbs me to see my hard-earned money going to a foreign worker. And then all these brothers here that are union brothers don't protest that. That really disturbs me. If you're going to be a union man, you need to support your American workers all the way through and through. It's just like the flag up there. I'd like to know if that was made in China or not. If it was, I wouldn't even put it up there. But I don't know if there's many people that feel the way I do that would take a look at those issues. So anyway, I appreciate you just let me speak my piece, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Franklin, I have to say, your piece is refreshing, and I enjoyed listening.
Ms. Kruger.
Thank you. Before you ask the taxpayers to vote to approve for more money for the fire district, you need to work harder to bring these salaries in line with reality. As we know, the median salary in your district is about $155,000. The median household income in Sacramento County is $55,000. That's out of line, totally. Also, we know that you still have 2/3 of your employees earning in six figures. That's hard to believe, too, when you're in this county just the way we are. Sounds out of line. This is an ongoing sore point between the voters and your fire district that you need to solve if you're ever going to get a vote, the one you're thinking of doing, or indeed if you want to be reelected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And any other comments, Chief?
I'd like to address the last speaker because I think it's important. I think this board would tend to agree with you that the salaries have been generous. I think as President Orzali put in for much too long in the op-ed piece that he put in the paper. And it's unfortunate you get 450 words to respond to the media. You don't get the opportunity to lay it out. But I'd, at least for tonight, like to lay out some of the things that we did over the last several years, because I think it's important that people hear that, because I think the perception is that this board sat on its hands in this district and did nothing. So I'd just like to take a couple minutes with your deference, sir, to cover the things that the board did, if
Absolutely.
you don't mind. In 2010, Metro Fire faced recession-based property tax losses, and all of you, the citizens, felt it as well. Our main source of revenue is property tax. And we lost, at the height, $24 million a year in property tax losses due to the property tax collapse and the housing market collapse. When I arrived here in 2009 as a deputy chief, the district had already laid off 27 personnel, demoted 41 others, and worked with labor employees to give up permanently 12% guaranteed pay raises that were already in a contract that they had. We reduced the administration staff by half and closed 3 fire stations. When I was promoted in early 2011, I requested that the board cut the fire chief's salary by 20% on a permanent basis. Following that, and at the direction of the board of directors, mid-contract permanent wage and benefit cuts were voluntarily negotiated with our labor unions. These cuts included employees paying 12% of the employer's cost of CalPERS, equating to a 12% pay cut to every employee in the district of the employee's cost. We then reduced the starting wages for new employees by $6,108 per year permanently, and extended the amount of steps, I believe, from 5 to 7 to reach top step firefighter. We lowered educational incentives for the first 5 years of employment by as much as 5.5%. And to address the large compensation payouts that you saw in the newspaper, we also cut sick leave accruals, which makes up a lot of that over a 30-year period, by 50% for all new employees. And we negotiated overtime to be paid on base rate wages, not inclusive incentives, which actually is in violation of federal law, but labor and management agreed to do that. Having accomplished these goals, the district ascertained that it was less costly in the long run to pay overtime at that point than it was to hire fully benefited employees to cover staffing shortages. The decision to utilize overtime staffing in lieu of hiring new employees was an actively managed process. In other words, we knew what we were doing, and we knew the numbers would be high per employee, but it saved the district money. This decision created a significant burden on our existing workforce, as at times 30 to 50 employees a day were ordered to work overtime shifts. Not voluntarily, they were held over and ordered. Despite whether they had holidays, birthdays, family stuff going on, it didn't matter, you're mandatory. With some employees, this added an additional 2,000 hours to their regular workload, thereby working the equivalent of a full year of employment hours just in overtime. While this situation was far from ideal for many reasons, the choice was a strategic financial decision to help the district achieve stability, as had we hired fully benefited firefighters, it would have cost the district an additional $4.6 million. In total, these successful efforts that I just talked about reduced the employee-related expenses by more than $10 million a year in cuts. We had lost $24 million in property tax. We saved more than $10 million a year. And these savings were done mid-contract with an existing contract in place, and the only way they could be accomplished was for the labor unions to come forward and voluntarily agree to that. We could not impose it on them because they had an existing agreement. But we weren't done. Following those decisions, the district again worked with labor to achieve mid-contract voluntary concessions to cap medical costs and pre-fund retiree medical benefits, allowing the district to fully pre-fund our retiree medical costs and cut our unfunded liabilities, which you read about in the paper, by $92 million. Every current and retired employee now pays 8% of their medical costs per year. This was combined with a modified labor retirement plan that was subsequently replaced by Governor Brown's pension reforms. Even though Metro Fire employees have not had a raise for over 5.5 years, the district was still forced to close an additional fire station and 3 engine companies. Due to the cuts above, it is now less costly once we implemented all those cuts to hire fully benefited employees than it is to pay overtime. And I want to add that when pension reform came in, Metro Fire led before the governor and the legislature ever acted. We were already implementing the 12% cut to our employees in CalPERS. We were the only agency that I know of that did that ahead of the governor. Due to the above cuts, it's now less costly to hire new employees than to pay overtime. The district hired 39 new firefighters in 2013 and plans to hire an additional 90 in 2014, which will significantly drop overtime expenses. With 115 retirements since 2011 and another 31 anticipated by the end of this year, almost half of the Metro Fire employees by the end of this year will be under the new reduced pay and benefit package. Almost half of our 500 or so employees in just a few years' time. Despite those progressive measures Metro Fire has taken over the past years, our current revenue streams remain unable to meet current and projected future service demand. And the gentleman was right. We've tried to get right down to the nth deal, so we put in there that in the current year we were $32,000 to the good. The problem is we've closed a total of 6 engine companies and 3 fire stations that are closed. And our response time went from 64% for the district in a 4-minute travel response time to 55%. And in the busy parts of the day, what the public doesn't know, of the 39 or 40 apparatus that we have out there, at the normal time of the day, we have between 17 and 21 of those units out simultaneously on calls. And I don't think the public knows that. So that's why when we talk about revenue, the problem is 2 of the engines that we have in service currently are grant funded, which will expire in a year. So those do not have funding to be able to keep them open. And because a lot of our district, and unfortunately for the taxpayers that are sitting out there tonight, lost tremendous amounts, 50% or more in their value, a lot of those houses went into foreclosure. And when they went into foreclosure and they were resold, they're reassessed under Proposition 13 at the new level. And then they're fixed at 2% or the CPI on a go-forward basis for it to come up. And we still have large commercial assessments out there that are pending to drop big commercial properties down that haven't been acted upon yet. So even when that property tax starts to creep up a little bit, those other assessments are kicking in. So we have a long-term problem and a long recovery. We went in very steep, but to come out with a new set is going to take time to get there. And so that's why next week on the 3rd, and I'll be announcing it later, we're going to have that open workshop for the public to come and ask questions about why we're doing what we're doing and what we've done before we ever came to the public to ask for anything. We had to get our own fiscal house in order. And to some people, it won't be enough. But on the whole, we cut of that 24 million loss, almost half of it was cut coming out of the employees on a permanent basis on a go-forward mid-contract. And I am sure that, you know, through that trust factor, we are trying to do more every day and streamline service. And to the gentleman, I agree, in American Jobs, and I was a union leader for a lot of years. So my sympathies are there with that. Unfortunately, we were in a position where we were sitting there trying to save nickels and dimes. And your point sits with me very solidly. So we have really tried to look at every way that we can streamline. There will be more to come. This board of directors is not done. But we have to do something now to get service back to our citizens so when they call 911, we can get there. And we can help them in their time of chaos when their world's coming apart. And it's really about that service level in the end. And so with that, that concludes my comments, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. Moving then to the action items.
Mr. Chair, I think we need the
Oh,
consent.
that's right, we got lost in the consent, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Chair,
So-
I move our consent items as listed on the agenda.
We have a motion? I second. We have a second? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
And Orzali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving now to the action items. Item 1, a lease agreement for 3121 Gold Canal Drive in Rancho Cordova. Chief Cockrum?
Good evening, President Orzali, Director Scott Cochran, Deputy Chief of Support Services. Tonight, I'm here to produce or ask for your approval of a lease agreement between the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District and the Regional Communications Center. Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District owns property located at 3121 Gold Canal in Rancho Cordova, and the property was last used as Metro Fire's Business Services Center. This property was listed under an agreement with CB Richard Ellis for a period of 2 years ending in December of 2013 with no offers for a lease. Metro Fire was approached by the Regional Communications Center to see if the building might be available for lease to them to use as a training site as well as a backup emergency dispatch recovery site. This lease agreement would be for 3 years with 2 single-year extensions by mutual consent. There are no costs for Metro Fire for tenant improvements, which would typically be included in a standard lease agreements between $10 and $20 per square foot. The building is approximately 8,500 square feet. Staff recommends the board adopt and approve the resolution to enter into this lease agreement. Take any questions.
Questions? Director Scheidegger?
Chief, I appreciate, it's been slow in running it. I was just curious, I did a little math on the per square foot rental. What is property going for in this area typically?
Well, we had it up for lease. We were thinking we could get upwards between $6,000 and $8,000 a month, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. Okay, and again, this hasn't rented for a couple of years, so we're,
Hasn't rented, we have a short lease, but keeping in mind that we have no tenant improvements. So my math on tenant improvements would be about $80,000 that we would normally be putting back into that, where we have a zero for that.
and you advertise that into what we're getting.
Yes, sir. And then also keep it in mind that we pay 48% of any of the fees that go through the communication center at this point, and we're getting a backup communication emergency dispatch site. We're also getting one of the greater benefits of this is that using that as a training site, they've gone from about a 10% pass rate on their new employees upwards of 80% now. So there's a big savings when they have an appropriate site, but on appropriate training and those sort of things. So it's really an overall big picture. It's really to help out our overall communications needs throughout the county.
Thank you for your answer.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that we adopt.
I have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Clark? Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Orzali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving into item 2, agreement, third-party administrator for deferred compensation plan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Troy Simonik. I'm the chairperson of the Deferred Compensation Committee. I work at 65 on B shift as my regular job. As I spoke to you guys a couple months ago, getting an approval of someone else on our committee, I said we'd be going out for an RFP. October of last year, we went out for an RFP for a third-party provider. Our current provider is Nationwide. We went out, we had 3 finalists, Mass Mutual, Valak, and Nationwide, as is your packet. Nobody could beat Nationwide. Basically, Nationwide came with us with a spectacular offer, lowered our cost by 40%. Basically, they're offering us the same pricing with $85 million as you would get with a $1 billion plan. So I really think we hit it out of the park with this deal. So I'm asking for approval to extend the contract with amendments with Nationwide. If you guys have any questions, please ask.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no objection by anybody else, I would move this issue and seek approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I do have a question before we move forward with the vote. This is, This is the second time that Nationwide has had this contract, is that correct?
Correct. It started out, when we started out merging, it was pretty much a Wild West free-for-all. We had probably 20 different service providers. I do believe about 15 years ago, we incorporated with VALIC. VALIC took over and we got one provider, which smoothed everything out. And then Nationwide won our second contract. Our 5-year extension expired. We had a 1-2-year extension. So we've been with Nationwide for 7, and then this is why we went up for an RFP. Our intention is to go out for an RFP every 5 years,
Right.
just to test the waters and just to make sure that we're getting the absolute best in the contract that we can get. And this is, bar none, I think the best contract we could do.
Well, the numbers are really strong in it in terms of percentage and fees, but I heard you say that there was a reduction of 40% in your cost?
Yeah, the average expense ratio went from 83.83% down to 0.57%, which is a 40% decrease in cost, which, I mean, it sounds insignificant, but you're not going to get that out there anywhere else. I think we did a good job.
Thank you. So, would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Jones? And Rosali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good job, Troy.
Thank you. Moving then to the mid-year budget review. Ms. McFarland.
Good evening, directors. I'm Rhonda McFarland, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight we'll be asking for your approval of the mid-year budget. I will be reviewing the major points, and for our visitors here, we are on a fiscal year. We wait to do this adjustment until after we receive information from the county on our property taxes, which we received in February, and thus the timing of this change. It's a collaboration that starts with the budget manager requesting budget changes. I then do projections on our revenues, and then command staff met on February 24th, and then a larger meeting was held on March 4th, which we also had the chairman of the board's Finance and Audit Committee participate in. And then on March 13th, this presentation was reviewed with the Finance and Audit Committee as well. We had some guiding principles. We wanted to limit budget increases to essential and mandated costs and return any budget resources if actual costs will be less than anticipated at the beginning of the budget year, or that the costs will be deferred into a subsequent year. And we also wanted to minimize the use of reserve funds. Most of our money is spent in the general fund, and this is a recap of our general fund. It shows the budget that's in place right now, the adjustments that we're proposing, and the new mid-year budget. Overall, we're looking at seeing a over $4 million increase to revenue. We are also $4.7 million increase to expenditures, a small difference in transfers, with an overall change of a negative $671,000. We still, after these adjustments, do have a balanced budget with $406,000 being added to the reserves. And I will be reviewing in detail these proposed changes. Property taxes, which funds most of our agency, we had what we felt was a very tight projection. When we're looking at around $110 million a year, and we were within $300,000. So we're proposing an increase of $300,000, and it's primarily coming from what's referred to as supplemental property taxes. And that has to do with properties that changed hands, and they're doing kind of a catch-up adjustment to adjust the taxes appropriately. We also receive money, as you know, from the dissolved successor agencies to redevelopment, which indeed was actually money that came to our agency before it was diverted. as well as we have some pass-through agreements with a couple of the redevelopment agencies, which are now have a successor agency. In that case, we're not changing any amounts in total, but all of the revenue was budgeted in one line item, and we are doing a reclassification to just classify part of it as the residual distribution, and that's the portion of it that is the return of the property tax money to our agency after the disbanding of the redevelopment agencies, and then leaving the remainder in the pass-through. So it's just kind of a housekeeping thing with no impact to the overall budget. We also lowered revenue for we had $250,000 in there where we had sought out grant funds through the county for an HVAC replacement, and based on the actual amounts, we needed to lower that by $95,000. Deployments. The chief spoke of the many times we deploy our firefighters, and we do not budget for deployments. We do not know at the beginning of the year how many fires we'll be asked to assist with, and so there's nothing put into the budget at the beginning of the year for deployments. And what we are adding at this point is revenue that represents what we're being reimbursed. And later on, you will see when we look at labor costs, it did result in more overtime. So they are making us whole, and that's why I'm recommending we add $2 million to our revenue. And this, as noted up there, we had 25 fires that we responded to, and that's just year to date. There could be further calls on us later in the year, but again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves on these numbers, so we are basing it on what we've actually assisted with at this point. The next change that we're proposing is a change removing the budgeted self-inspection fees, which were $276,000. This board decided to no longer have self-inspections, and so that amount of money we are changing to code enforcement inspections. So the inspections are still required. It's just being done by Metro Fire personnel. Then the next item has to do with the ground emergency medical transport program that this agency's been working on statewide for 2.5 years. And this in total, we're increasing the retroactive money, because this goes all the way back to 2009, 2010. We are actually adding $2.1 million to the budget that was not in there at the beginning of the year. And then for the current year's money, we are reducing that by $206,000. So we had $680,000 for the most recent year's reimbursement, and we're lowering that to $474,000. I want to mention, and this was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, that there's additional monies that will be coming to us in the total of about $1.2 million as far as cost report reimbursements, and another $300,000 in administration. And we do not have that in the budget. That money was put on hold at the state level. And Chief, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, what ended up happening is the state is in a disagreement with the federal government on a area of reimbursement. This is not specifically the problem, but it's caught up in that plan. And so until they get their disagreement straightened out, which could be a month or a year, we can't count on that money coming in. The other thing I want to make very clear, because people are watching, is this money is one-time money that's coming in on the retroactive. And I think that's important, because at the end of the day, this district is not of a mindset to spend one-time money on ongoing expenses. So we're not going to deficit spend, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay. In addition, in the same category, we're adding $600,000 in revenue to reimburse us for administration of the program statewide. When all of the cost reports, even the ones that are on hold, factor in, the number will be more like $900,000. And I know we know this well, but we do have a couple people in the audience that may not know what this is all about. But it's basically when we transport Medi-Cal patients, we have a very limited amount that we recover. And by using some programs and putting forward some programs with the state, we were able to get additional funding from the federal government, not for us specifically, but for every fire or public ambulance transporter in the state. So we talked a lot about tax money tonight, and California is a net taxpayer to the federal government. So this made the ledger get a little bit more our direction. So looking at the total revenue, final budget was at $155 million, and the revised mid-year budget revenue recommendation is $159 million. And as I spoke to earlier, the lion's share of the funding for this fire district comes from property taxes, 71.1%. And the other large source of income is the cost reimbursement for our medical transports. Together, those two make up more than 90% of the revenues coming to this agency. So we're picking up additional money in other areas where we can, but those are our two largest sources of income. Labor costs. We're proposing approximately a $4 million increase in labor costs to bring it to $135 million. $1.8 million of that $4 million represents the portion of revenue that we're receiving reimbursement for the deployments that is labor related. The other $200,000 relates to both administration and engines and that type of thing that we're reimbursed for as well. In addition, right now, when we put this budget together, there were 31 vacancies due to the retirements outpacing the recruitment. And we had significant overtime because of that, and the net amount that we had to increase the overtime was $1.3 million. So we did see some of that offset with lower wages for those vacancies, but the net increase for all of that was $1.3 million. In addition, we are adjusting the rate of overtime to make it in compliance with federal requirements, and that added $1.1 million, and that's just for the period January 6th through June 30th. And then the next item that I have listed up there has to do with pre-funding our post-retirement medical obligations. And we had indeed planned to fund the full ARC. Something short of that was in the original budget, and so we're increasing the funding, the pre-funding to the ARC by $646,000 so that we fully fund our annual required contribution. In addition, we have about $1 million reduction in medical benefit costs. Some of that relates to things that happened as of January 1 with the concessions that happened last year. There were certain things that kicked in January 1. We didn't know the full impact of those, and the reason that there was a delayed implementation of certain things is because we wanted to give our employees the opportunity to make changes in their choices, and when the open enrollment happens in the fall and is effective for January 1. So we had savings due to the caps that were put on the amount of medical premiums that the district will pay. We also had some people that said, if I'm going to cost share with you, I'm going to see if I can find maybe a more efficient plan for myself. And so when they benefited, we benefited too. In addition, the 31 vacant positions, we're not paying medical premiums on those, so that was another savings there. And then the third portion of what constituted these savings had to do with the actual rate of the change in medical premiums being less than we had anticipated as of January 1. So we're projecting, based on what we see in the economy, like 7, 8 months before the actual changes happen. So we don't have a lot of control over that. In some years that goes the other direction, but this year we actually benefited from that. So those three things that I mentioned are what is in total saving that $1 million in medical costs. In addition, we're proposing 3 new personnel, and if you don't mind, Chief, as you, at Finance Committee, if you would speak to those?
Yes. First off, I'll deal with the battalion chief and EMS. As we talked about the ground emergency medical transport money that we talked about coming in, Metro Fire, along with Assemblymember Pan and Steinberg's office, we were the first ones to identify that there was this reimbursement capability. That reimbursement capability only took 3 years to get the clarifying legislation to enact the government to be able to refund us the money, passing it through to the state to us. Unfortunately, one major component was not done, which is the HMOs. As you know, under the Affordable Health Care Act, and as we enroll people in the Medi-Cal, they're really pushing them at the state level into HMOs. And so about 80% of the revenue that we would have obtained from GEMT, we never got because it's in the HMO lockbox, for a lack of a better word. We also have the ability to achieve reimbursement for engine-based paramedics that go out on calls as well. Both of these issues are going to require extensive legislation. And with that legislation, we have a brand new legislature. Welcome to term limits. And so they don't have any clue as to what GEMT is or what the reimbursement is. This is going to involve a major, major educational issue, and we're leading the charge on that. So Chief Clough, who's the Assistant Chief in charge of EMS, will remain as the Assistant Chief in charge of the overall EMS, but his job duties are going to basically switch to getting these 2 pieces of legislation done, which could equate eventually down the road to millions of dollars of revenue, not just for this agency, but literally $400 to $600 million in revenues coming into fire agencies statewide. It's doable. It's the law. We just need to enact the changes, but that takes a lot of work to get that done. So part of succession planning is we want to move a battalion chief. If you remember, I talked about us cutting the administrative staff in half. We don't have the people power to do all this. So we will bring a battalion chief into EMS, and that battalion chief will run the day-to-day operations, which will allow Chief Clough more attention to getting this revenue enhancement issue through the state legislature so that we can attract those federal dollars. There's also, as you know, the single role program has been extremely successful. Everybody who went to the graduation last night, I know Director Scheidegger was there. We had 3/4 of the people we hired were from the Sacramento region. I mean, that's a big deal. And we probably will be expanding that program. And so in doing that, we need somebody else in there to do the day-to-day supervision. So that's why the battalion chief. Human resources specialist, we are going to hire 90 personnel alone just as firefighters. We do not have the staff capacity to do all the backgrounds and all the information that needs to be done to support that along with the single roles. They have been running drastically reduced. So it's at a critical breaking point that we put somebody into the Human Resources Division to be able to keep up with that expansion of hiring at that massive rate. Because they simply can't do it. That's just where it's at. Like I say, it's at the breaking point. And last but least is the accounting technician. I have accounting technician or payroll people who are salaried, who are working 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks. That is not acceptable to me as a fire chief, and I know it's not to you as the board. That's how broke they are. And, you know, like it or not, part of the reason that we had numbers that went out to the state controller that were wrong is because we were using temporary employees who are doing their best, but we were trying to save money. And I think we were being penny wise and pound foolish on that. So we cannot have payroll not have the support that it needs, and so we're moving somebody into that position. And so that is the reason. The cost for the remainder of this year is $75,000. It's about $350,000 for the go-forward basis next year. We'll be reanalyzing that and seeing how that fits into the budget, but right now that surge capacity is needed. It's critical for functions to go day to day, and so that's why we're recommending it.
Chief, I have a question. In the absence of new revenue, the net effect on these hires, is this going to put us in deficit for next year? Since property value is not coming back with the speed that we'd like.
Well, we would be high, well, we will look at the deficit. I think the problem is that it's now cheaper to hire new employees. So we need to hire them to drop the overtime down, which will save us money. So I need the human resources people to do that. The accounting technician, that load is still there. And the battalion chief for EMS, that person's job is to help free up the assistant chief to try to go out and get more revenue into the district. So yeah, if we don't have new revenue that comes into this district, those positions are going to be in question on whether they make it into next year's budget on a continuing basis. But I can tell you the system is to a point now where it's just broken. And so I'm willing, with the revenue we have this year, to get those people in place to try to have an impact. But we're, as you know, we're analyzing the budget weekly, monthly, daily. We're looking at it from every 6 ways we can to try to maximize what we're spending.
Thanks, Chief. I was just concerned about the potential for us to be in deficit spending in the future. So before we call for a vote.
I don't think she's done that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Please, go ahead.
You've seen the biggest numbers, so I'll keep going. This is just a graph showing our 6-year history of bringing our costs down, and there have been no cost of living raises for over 5 years. We've had all the cuts that the chief went through, so this is just a snapshot of just the history of the labor costs on a longer-term basis. With the reason we did 6 years is that was when the large drop in property taxes happened.
And let me address labor costs here, because there's something that's deceptive. We started the single role paramedic program. That added a significant cost, even though it derives revenue to the district. The cost of that program for those ambulances, is Chief Clough here? It's several $1 million a year to run it, even though it brings additional revenue in up and beyond that. So that's why you do see that spike there. That isn't us just going out and hiring willy-nilly. So I wanted to make sure that that was accurate.
Thank you. The other aspect of expenditures that we have are for service and supplies. The revised number that we would like to go to is 21 million. That's just 1 million more than we had at final budget. We had many cases, we had decreases coming in from various budget managers, and those were able to absorb some of the smaller increases. But the 3 large items that affected the service and supplies was $600,000 we needed to add for the special election costs for this. Of course, if it was not to go forward, then there would be, we would not need to spend that. $220,000 for personnel services, and what that represents is temporary costs. We've had a lot of vacancies for various reasons and people out on long-term leaves where we've had to have more temporaries working for us than we have planned for in the budget. So this is to get us through the end of the year. In addition, there was increases to fleet maintenance for both vehicles and the helicopter. Oops. Went back to it. And then overall for the budget, which includes labor, service and supplies, is $4.8 million. So it puts us at $159 million budget for the general fund. Previously, we were at $154 million. Labor costs being over 85% of the budget. You can see one of the things that really speaks loudly on this pie chart is the little amount that's being spent on capital assets, and that's because we simply don't have the money for it. And we also have our capital facilities fund where we do some spending for capital as well. We spent a lot of time last year working on a reserve policy, and so we monitor very closely where we are on reserves. I gave you a handout that had to do with the matrix that was put together when we did the reserve policy last year, and with the various types of reserves. What we show on this graph are the ones that we call unassigned fund balance, our operating reserves. And the best practices by the government finance officers is to have about minimum 2 million or 2 months worth of reserves. In our case, our minimum that we have set, you have set as a board, is 15%, which is nearly 2 months. It's 1.8 months. We are not there. We're at $16.7 million projected for year end. That's 10.6%. And what's interesting to me is that when we did this analysis back in the last time that we did it, we actually were projecting $2 million less, but our percentage was higher. And as the budget grows, then the reserves that are necessary also need to grow. Just real briefly, we, in the area of capital reserves and capital improvement reserves, we really have nothing. And so we are not meeting any of the minimums that we need, but that is out of necessity. And then at some point, we'll be having to face that, and that's some of what we're looking at with, asking our citizens for more help. All the other areas, other than early debt extinguishment, we meet the requirements. On early debt extinguishment, we're very close, and we have ratably increased the amount that we're putting in the budget each year, so that by the time we hit 2018, when we need to pay off the first piece of that debt, the money will be there. And I'll just point out that we are right now, and I'm planning at a subsequent meeting for the Finance Committee to do a little bit more information on how our pre-funding's going for post-retirement medical, but right now we're at $5.9 million set aside for post-retirement medical, and by year end it should be about $8 million. Okay, I'll go quickly through the rest. The Capital Facilities Fund, we had very few changes. We see some big adjustments, but they net out to offset one another. They have to do with the Zinfandel training site. We removed $2.35 million from revenue and expenditures. This is work we're doing on behalf of the California Fire and Rescue Training Authority. The auditors deemed it a balance sheet transaction, so therefore we removed it from revenue and expenditures. I did lower our development fee revenue. I had anticipated, based on what I felt I observed in the economy, that it would be reasonable to increase development fees by about $200,000. That has not materialized, so I'm bringing it back down to what we had had actually received last year and what we're on track to be receiving this year. Information technology deferred one of their projects by $266,000. And then we had another accounting type adjustment, and you'll see the other side of this on the grant funds. We determined that some expenditures were made in this Capital Facilities Fund, and then the revenue was recorded and budgeted in the grant fund. So we're correcting that with the transfer. So overall, it's a $2.7 million decrease in operating costs, mostly of which were accounting adjustments. This is a summary of all the funds, and you can see that in total we're at a $175 million budget. We have, in only one case are we spending reserves, and that's in the case of the Capital Facilities Fund, and we are required to spend those reserves. Those are development fees that were collected in previous years, and they are restricted to use for specific things, of which we're required to spend that. We can determine which year, and in this case, we're spending money that was collected in previous years. And my recommendation is that you adopt the mid-year budget. There's a number of resolutions, and then there's the position authorization document that documents the 3 additional positions that we put into the budget.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I'm not sure if you can give me a generalization, but under administration, the non-divisional was increased $10.8 million. Can you give me some idea what non-divisional goes towards?
Non-divisional has the things that aren't really pertinent to any other division. I think one of the largest things we have in there is the cost that we're contributing to the ARC, the overall cost. And in addition, we also increased the total premiums for retirees since we had more than we determined.
It's a holding place for those
Yes.
those dollars. Thank you.
Other questions?
I was going to compliment Chief Holbrook on coughing up at least half of what was going into, close to half of what was going into non-divisional.
He means nicely.
Seeing no further questions, if there are no objections, I would advocate for someone to motion to adopt the 5 resolutions as presented by staff approving mid-year budget adjustments for fiscal year 2013, 2014, and approve the position authorization document.
So move. Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Individually or in group?
That's at your option. You can vote on them as a group, or you can vote on them separately.
I'll third it then.
We'll third it. Fine, thank you. So I have a motion, a second, and a third. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk,
Yes, times 5.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Kelly, Jones,
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was very well done.
Yes.
Moving then into the presentation section, we have the one presentation on fire suppression assessment by Chief Hinkie.
Yes, President Orzali, Board of Directors, over the last couple weeks, we've had the opportunity, staff has, to do some presentations and before some groups, including the Sacramento Taxpayers Association. And even though we have had 60 meetings, 60 different presentations out there, there was a sense that they would like some more time, not just them, but a variety of different stakeholders to take a look at the benefit assessment. And we feel in your consultation, you directed us that we should take that time to let the public come and have a conversation and have input and not have a vote that same evening. And so with that, I want to announce and correct tonight's agenda. So if you're looking at tonight's agenda at home or on the web, I think we've already corrected it on the website. I don't know about the agenda, but the announcement is on the website that's accurate. I want to announce the following. There will be a special board meeting on Thursday, April 3rd, 2014 at 5 p.m. in these chambers. Okay? And the purpose of this meeting, and I'll repeat the date and time several times, is for the public to obtain information regarding a proposed fire suppression assessment. There will be a presentation of revenue to service review of Metro Fire prepared by Citygate Associates, and a presentation of the engineer's report for the proposed fire suppression assessment prepared by Wildan Financial Services. There will also be an overview of the cuts that the district has made so that the public can see what we did before we ever came to this suggestion here. The board will also take public comment on the proposed fire suppression assessment at this meeting. There will be no formal action taken at this meeting. This is designed to be a workshop. This is designed to allow the public to get up to the microphone and ask their questions of the experts, of staff, and to dig into all the intricacies and get their questions answered. We originally were going to vote that night. We are not going to. The president of the board asked us, and the concurrence of the board, that we will now move to a special board meeting on Wednesday, April 16th, 2014, at 6 p.m. The purpose of this meeting will be for the board to consider adopting a resolution to, 1, accept the engineer's report, 2, set a date for a public hearing, which will be the final date for the district to receive ballots and to take public comment and consider any protests. 3, approve the procedures for completion, return, and tabulation of any ballots. The public hearing will be scheduled no sooner than 45 days from the date of this action. The board will also take public comment on the proposed fire suppression assessment at that meeting as well. Both meetings will be videotaped. Those videos will be uploaded to the district's website, and Metro Cable will broadcast these meetings on Saturday at 1 p.m. after the meeting, and again on Monday at 6 p.m. after the meeting. Now, this is so important that I would like to go through it one more time for the voters in case they're sitting at home and they missed it, because it's not easy unless you're recording it to rewind it. There will be a special board meeting on Thursday, April 3rd, 2014 at 5 p.m. in these chambers. The purpose of this meeting is for the public to obtain information regarding a proposed fire suppression assessment. There will be a presentation of revenue to service review of Metro Fire prepared by Citygate Associates, and a presentation of the engineer's report for the proposed fire suppression assessment prepared by Wildan Financial Services. There will also be a presentation on the overall cuts and objectives that this district has taken before ever going to the public on this issue. At this meeting, no formal action will be taken. There will be no vote. It will be the ability of the public as a workshop to come and ask as many questions as they would like to ask. There then will be another special board meeting on Wednesday, April 16th, 2014 at 6 p.m. The purpose of this meeting will be for the board to consider adopting a resolution to, 1, accept the engineer's report, 2, set a date for a public hearing, which will be the final date for the district to receive ballots and to take public comment and consider any protests, and 3, approve the procedures for completion, return, and tabulation of any ballots. The public hearing will be scheduled no sooner than 45 days from the date of this action. The board will also take public comment on the proposed fire suppression assessment at this meeting. Both meetings will be videotaped. The videos will be uploaded to the district's website, and Metro Cable will broadcast these meetings on Saturday at 1 p.m. after the meeting, and again on Monday at 6 p.m. after the meeting. Now, it's important to know that this document was sent, I believe, to all of the stakeholders, including the Taxpayers Association, rental housing, chambers of commerce, a whole wide variety of people out there today by email, and to get it in their hands as soon as possible. And so we want the public to know that we're going to take the extra time, allow this to occur, to have a full dialogue on the issue. We'll have the staff and the experts here to answer questions for people. And surely, if people have questions, I believe Deputy Chief's phone number, Holbrook's phone number, is on the website. They can call me as well. We are here, willing and able to sit down and talk to people on this issue. And so with that, that concludes my comments in regards to that it's so important that people understand that the agenda that was published is not accurate. It's April 3rd at 5 p.m., and there will be no vote. It will be a workshop. And that concludes my remarks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. Moving then to my report. Earlier this week, there was a letter that I sent to the Sacramento Bee, and I'd like to take a moment to express my appreciation to all of the people who have emailed me, called, and responded to the piece about our proposed benefit assessment. It's been very gratifying to see that there's that level of support for what we're trying to do for the community. So Thank you to each of those people. And moving then to General Counsel's report.
No report. I think there's a fire chief's report also in
Oh,
there.
excuse me, there's a fire chief's report, but I'm tired of listening to him. But if you insist, Chief.
I do. I'm happy to announce tonight that I believe it was yesterday or the day before, I finally obtained the information that we needed in regards to the Slough House tax assessment. Assemblymember Cooley, in a conversation that we had, advised us that in fact, the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire Protection District was right. The statute limited us to 4 years. We did not have the legal authority to go beyond that. ... But this district wants to go beyond that. So because we had already requested in writing of Assemblymember Cooley to push for urgency legislation, which he has agreed to do, that will be focused on Sac Metro Fire District, he has agreed to move that forward and seek that legislation to allow us to compensate those people for the years which we were legally prohibited from giving them their money back. So I want to thank all the parties involved. This has been a tough ordeal. We want to get the money back in the hands. I think some people alluded that this district didn't have the law right. We did. And that answer has been rendered. But more importantly, it allows us to move quickly as we can, in supporting Assemblymember Cooley and getting this legislation passed so we can get those taxpayers their dollars back. Also, we had the opportunity, the SACB published what was on the state controller's website for salaries. The SACB was right with what they published. We were wrong with what we submitted to the state controller's office. It was our mistake. The numbers were overinflated because they double counted overtime. So I'm greatly appreciative to the B that they did put President Orzali, I saw your letter in the B, to state the full facts about where it was at and be able to correct those numbers. And so I'm very, very much appreciative of that. The day that that story broke, Chief Holbrook and I had the honor of meeting with the Sacramento County Taxpayers Association in regards to the benefit assessment. And I certainly want to thank them for their time and patience and understanding and hearing us out. We spent 2.5 what I thought were productive hours with them. They have been great. They're one of the entities that had talked about potentially getting some more time to take a look at this assessment issue. And today they were appreciative that we've turned that meeting on the 3rd into a workshop. And so I want to thank them for the respect they showed us, the understanding. And we now have submitted the correct data, as I said earlier, to the state controller. It's been published on his website. We also spent the backup data to the Sacramento Bee so that they have it. And that issue, I think, has been resolved. On April 10th, I have the California Metro Fire Chiefs meeting, which I chair. I've been at numerous events for Supervisor McGlashan, cabinet meetings, as has Chief Holbrook. I will be attending another one in Citrus Heights tomorrow at Denny's at Sunrise and Greenback at 7:30, and have thoroughly enjoyed getting out to talk to her constituents and our constituents in Citrus Heights and throughout her district. On March 26th, the single role paramedic program 14-1 graduated, which was last night. We had 12 EMTs and 14 paramedics that graduated. And I would say over 3/4 of those people were from Sacramento County regionally here. I mean, it was impressive to see the amount of hands that go up. And as the gentleman talked about earlier about hiring American workers and hiring local workers is just as important, giving our young men and women the chance and the opportunity to have a career, to have a profession, and to move forward in that career and profession. And this program so far has been a stellar success, and I'm very, very excited about that and look forward to another academy, I think, starting here in several months to carry that on. We continue to do outreach on the revenue enhancement. Tomorrow night, the 28th, is a Sacramento Metro Fire Association and Fire Department retirement dinner at the Croatian Center at 6 p.m. The week of March 30th, April 4th. The week of March 31st through April 4th is the 44th Annual Fire Mechanics Academy, which we host here at McClellan Air Force Base. And we have people from all over the country that come to that fire mechanics workshop to learn about apparatus and that. And Fred Bino and his staff have been tremendous in setting that up. It is with a sense of sadness tonight that I announce that Fred's father passed away this week, so our thoughts and prayers are with him. But his staff and even Fred is in and out throughout the week setting up for that huge, huge event. Reassignments effective March 17th, Captain Chris Quinn was selected to fill the exercise coordinator assignment for the Urban Area Security Initiative, the UASI, with the Office of Homeland Security. This is a grant-funded position and expires May 31st, 2015, at no cost to the district. Promotions. Effective 3/17, I announced, President Orzali did, Melissa Pania was appointed as our new board clerk. Congratulations again to her. And with that, that concludes my remarks. Let me make sure nothing was put on the back. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Then to the operations report.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board of Directors, Chief Hinkie, Darren Taylor, Assistant Chief of Operations on the A shift, currently working as the Acting Deputy Chief of Operations. I'm here tonight to give you your operational numbers since our last board meeting. Metro Fire units had 2,759 EMS dispatches with a transport ratio of 72.5%. Our partners in the EMS world, AMR, had 3 dispatches with 2 transports with a transport ratio of 66%. Our men and women that are on the floor also had 14 working structure fires since our last board meeting, which was on March 13th. And as you always hear me say, as the acting deputy, I'm very proud of the men and women that are out there in their professional job that they do serving the citizens of which you represent. And do you have any questions? Everyone have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And we'd established, Council, that you do not have a report?
No report.
Thank you. Moving then to Firefighters Local 522.
Good evening, Board. Ty Bailey, Local 522 Vice President. I'm going to start reverse order for my notes here, but Fire Ops 101, April 2nd. I know there's several of you that are going to be attending. I appreciate that. Also, if you don't want to participate, you can come and observe. It's going to be a local training that all of the 522 representatives will be putting on, and we're looking forward to seeing you out there. So I appreciate that. I want to follow up what Chief Hinkie talked about on the benefit assessment. First of all, 522 is in support of moving forward with the benefit assessment, and it came down to 2 primary reasons. First of all, it's about community safety and community service. Secondly, it's about firefighter safety and firefighter working conditions. And those are the 2 primary reasons why. It has nothing to do with wages, wage increases. It's about providing that level of service with professional firefighters on the streets 365 days a year. Next, I would like to go on and speak of the single role paramedic program. 23 of those single roles that graduated, that are going to the Fire Academy beginning March 31st, which is Monday. 23 are coming from the single role paramedic program, and that's very important because a year ago, or over a year ago, we got together and came up with a way to provide a better service for EMS, but also to give our paramedics more training and education so that they're more successful as firefighters. And we've proven by working with management, labor and management, along with the board of directors, can be very successful. And that comes all the way down to including our current contracts. Since 2008, Chief Hinkey had spoke about concessions. Again, I want to reiterate, we did that before the end of our contracts when we didn't have to. We are your reserves. We are the ones that came to the plate and stepped up and took concessions to make sure we had fire stations and fire engines open for the communities. Lastly, I just want to state that we are on the third phase of our engineer testing process, which is starting next week. Currently, part of the overtime is getting our men and women out there trained, being successful as engineers. And the process that we came and put together is much more successful this go-around, so very happy with that. And with that, that is all I have this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Focus.
A little technical issue here.
Personal or machine?
Wow.
Committee
Wow.
and delegate reports.
Wow.
That's
You
just
know,
love going on
My,
between you
my
two.
peripheral vision isn't that good, so I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I'm just gonna scoot back.
Ow.
Here, just use this one, exact team.
Committee
Okay.
delegate.
The Executive Committee, moving then to Committee and Delegates Reports. The Executive Committee it has not met and is yet to be determined when our next meeting is. Moving on to the Communications Center JPA.
President Arzali, Director Scott Cochran, Deputy Chief of Support Services. The Communications Center met on Tuesday. We did vote to bring forward the new JPA agreement, the third amended JPA agreement. We voted on, signed a resolution to that, so that'll be coming to you at the next board meeting. All 4 member agencies agreed to that. The 2 primary things that were on there, the changes that were on there, I think I mentioned before. One was how a new member agency might enter into and what their costs might be to do that. And then the exiting, what any capital expenses that are made while you're a member agency, you're going to be responsible for throughout the entirety of that capital improvements payment process. This process was vetted through our counsel, John Lavra, who gave his agreement that everything on there looked legal and satisfactory, and will be going to the four member agency boards at their next meetings. You'll receive that at the next meeting, and it'll be a JPA agreement. My anticipation is just to put it on the consent. There's not any significant discussion that really needs to take place on that. So the other thing that has taken place over the last week is the P25 first phase of the migration, which is the new digital phase of the migration. Has taken place. It was not without its issues over the last week, but I'm happy to say that this new comm center staff really took care of that, along with a significant amount of time with our operations division, and we had lost radio channels. It was a great exercise for us to work within. So, any questions I can answer? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Moving then to the California Fire and Rescue Training JPA with Director Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, the JPA met today, and the JPA made a few decisions. We, on motion, it was motion and carried to repay this district for some of the funds that had been expended by Metro Fire on the Zimpendale site. It was also motion and carried to, well, we had approved the executive director search in the past. We had some more conversation on that. They've got a company called Bob Murray and Associates that is advertising the position. They also have it is a professional speaker series for this year. In June, September, and December, they will have very accomplished individuals from the fire service discussing a couple of different issues in fire service leadership and management. And those are available online at fireandrescuetraining.ca.gov. And we had an impassioned plea from an employee of the district of the JPA that used to work for this district concerning the employees in that district that schedule the classes, coordinate the classes, bill for the classes, get everything done that are not covered by any of the health care benefits or vacation or sick leave like so many of the people that sit on the board or that are in this room. And so we want to make sure that it stays on the front burner of that organization to figure out a way to properly compensate those individuals that work for the California Fire Rescue Training JPA with proper benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving then to the Finance Committee with Director Jones.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Our next meeting will be on May 8th at 5 p.m. in these quarters. And as in regards to the Finance Committee, I would like to also say thank you very much to CFO Rhonda McFarland. We went through pages and pages of budget work with she did and senior staff in order to come up with a very succinct, readable mid-year budget review. And myself, the Finance Committee, and the board, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Moving to the Policy Committee with Director Pearson.
We met today. We finalized the board policy manual with a recommendation to move it to the full board for the workshop to finish the last little bit of wording on our goals and objectives, basically, you know, the mission statement of the board type issues. Outside of that, we have left the meeting open to be announced because there are no further pressing issues for any further policy meetings. So if any of the directors have something, just email me and we can set up a meeting sometime after April. That's it.
Thank you. Moving then to the board members' questions and comments, and we can begin with Director Jones.
Again, thank you, Mr. President. Two items. One is that I would very much like to acknowledge my appreciation for the dialogue from the podium from our citizens, from our fire chief, Kurt Hinke, as well as board members. The purpose of these meetings are for dialogue and conversation, for participation. And kudos to the chief and to the citizens who have participated tonight. This exchange of information, viewpoints, that's what we're supposed to be all about, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that level of participation by the chief, his staff, as well as all the citizens. And I would also, on another note, like to express condolences to Fred Bino and his family on the passing of his father.
Thank you. Director Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I too would like to express condolences to Mr. Bino and his family. And I look forward to the opportunity for this district to tell its story to the citizens of Sacramento and those individuals that are concerned enough to come on April 3rd and again on April 16th. Mr. Chairman, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Mr. Chairman, all I have is also my condolences to Fred Bino and his family in this time of grief and what, you know, and it's, yeah.
Thank you. Director Pearson.
I again wanted to echo what Director Jones said about the citizens coming and having dialogue, and I must admit I feel a little embarrassed for the one gentleman talking about the union. I consider myself a pretty strong union advocate. I try to shop at union stores. I don't go to self-checkout lines. I pride myself on buying American, buying union made. And as I sit up here as a board member, I think I was concerned about the overall cost. And when we looked at these vehicles, it didn't even cross my mind that they might be made by non-union workers. It was a cost issue. Sounded like a good idea at the time. I think that's definitely something that we have to look at in the future. I mean, we pushed hard to make sure we had union labor in our buildings. We do support union labor. I think this district is very, very strong about that. And I know the chief very well, and I've worked with him on numerous union issues, and I know him to be a strong union advocate. And I can only imagine that he feels similar to the way I do right now on this issue. So I do appreciate the citizens coming here and keeping us in check. That's what we need. That was a good wake-up call for me anyways, and I will engage in that effort to make sure that we continue to employ our union brothers and sisters out there. So thank you.
Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. First off, I'd like to make the announcement that I will not be present on the April 16th meeting, given the lateness of it and some other obligations that I have. But I fully support the benefit assessment program. As the chief has mentioned multiple times, we never put this in play until after we had done countless and countless months of hard work. And so it's not a knee-jerk reaction when we're tired. It's something that was well thought out, well planned out. I encourage as many community members as possible to come to the meeting on the 3rd, where some experts, beyond the expertise of the folks in this room, will discuss the engineering report and will show you that it's being data-driven. We hear a lot about that today, and we're doing exactly what we suggest. We're driving these decisions based on engineering reports and data from people that are very bright in that regard. So I'd encourage you to come and hold them at task for some of their findings if you can find error. Also, I'd like to say congratulations to all the retiring public safety employees. It'll be celebrated tomorrow night. Fortunately, I have to be in Ontario tomorrow, so I'll miss that. But thank you to all those men and women who have spent thousands of hours and years serving the community in this area. My hat's off to them, and I wish them the best of luck in their retirement and many safe travels. I'd like to thank the operations group for their continued support of EMS and taking the courageous decision in these times to make sure that we're supporting that arm of our business in the right way, because we're running these people ragged, and they're still doing cutting-edge things like GM&T that no one else can do, and we're running at just 90 miles an hour, so I thank them for that. Congratulations to the new employees in our single role program, and I really want to thank the men and women who made the selections to take the courage to hire locally. And it's the dream of many local young men and women to come to work for this agency despite sometimes what they read. This is a premier fire agency, a vanguard as it was called 2 weeks ago. And that needs to be reinforced at the high schools and at the grade schools, that this is a vanguard public agency that you want to come work for. Work hard, and maybe one day you can be part of a graduating class. That dream is still alive at Sac Metro, and I hope that whoever's watching this or their children someday can be told that we'll continue to move forward with men and women who 30 years ago were part of a graduating class and today are our leadership. And it's with that, I thank them and again offer my condolences to Fred. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of quick comments. Number one, last night I had the pleasure of attending the graduation for single role paramedic class 14-1. And it was just wonderful to sit there and see these 26 new additions to our department and what they represent. And I really want to give a lot of credit to our staff, the counselors, if you will, the teachers, the instructors. They did an excellent job turning out a fantastic group of recruits. And in particular, I want the public to understand how important this is, that Metro is once again setting the standard in terms of having this inclusion and this classification. We're really benefiting and gaining from this. Secondly, Chief, I want you to know that I really appreciate the process that we're going through in terms of this benefit assessment and the flexibility that you're showing and doing everything that we can in our methodical approach to ensure maximal inclusion. And I think the community needs to understand that and appreciate that. Thank you very much for those efforts.
Thank you. Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll echo what everyone else has said earlier. I just have two comments, additional comments. Earlier in the week, I did get a question from someone in the public, and I wanted to get information so that I could respond from an educated position, not just my own opinion. And Chief, I appreciate you putting me in touch with Chief Taylor, with the assistance of Chief Holbrook, Chief Taylor, Chief Wagner, and Lozano. I got every bit of information I could have dreamed of to respond, so I do appreciate all the time and energy they put into it. And I will be sharing that with my fellow board members because it's pretty strong information. The other thing, I want to thank Assemblyman Cooley for coming back out. This district got bloodied in a particular news station for 3 days over the Slough House assessment, and I would like to see whether or not they're going to spend any time, broadcast time, addressing Assemblyman Cooley's position today. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Monk.
In the interest of brevity, I agree with everything that all my fellow directors have said. And again, thank you for the public members that showed up and expressed interest in what this district is doing. And to all those people that are working hard every day for this district. We appreciate all the efforts. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And I would like to close this meeting without comment, except to say that I agree with everything Director Monk just said. I would like to close this on a serious note with a moment of silence for the 2 firefighters in Boston who were killed in the line of duty this week. So with that, so thank you. We are adjourned. Gary, take it easy. Pardon?
Bye, Gary.
Yeah.